Super Rugby semi-finals time. Jeepers, let me get my breath back. How good were those qualifying finals? Guys, again in this video, I'm going to be giving you my preview and predictions for the semi-finals. And if you just want to stick around to the end, I'll summarise those predictions and final comments about the semi-finals. So, semi-final number 1 is the Crusaders versus the Blues on Friday the 13th of June in Christchurch. Ooh, now does it get any better than that, guys? First thing I'd say is, firstly, you look at the Blues, and to be honest, I'm still absolutely gobsmacked that they beat the Chiefs. Yeah, absolute ripper of a game though, and well deserved by the Blues. They were absolutely phenomenal. I think if you look at that game, obviously Josh Beer scoring the last try of the game to win it 2019. For me, the thing that won the game for the Blues was their defence. Like, that was absolutely phenomenal. It was their power that they took it to the Chiefs forwards. And boy, the Chiefs forwards, they really came up the middle, didn't they? They made good meters generally up the middle, but the way the Blues forwards just backtracked and they were relentless with their defence. And particularly that Blues defence, their line speed really impressed me as well. Like, you'd see the Chiefs would have the power up front, up the middle. They'd shift the ball to Damien McKenzie. And there didn't seem to be any space in the midfield or out wide So I think that the Blues defence really covered well and really put pressure on the Chiefs. I think maybe much more than the Chiefs sort of thought. But look, that Blues defence is really going to steer them quite well going into the semis and potentially the finals. They're going to be a very hard team for the Crusaders to crack. I think if you look at the Blues attack, I think it was good against the Chiefs. Scored a couple of tries there, and particularly that try at the end was very impressive. When they needed to, they brought that physicality in the middle, they brought that power up front, and they were so accurate with their phase play, with the pick and goes or the short balls, and just that relentless attack was in the end just too much for the Chiefs. But look, you got to give that to the Blues. When they needed to take their points, their chances were on offer. Like, for instance, that last play of the game, they took their chances on attack. So in some other sides in Super Rugby, they might get 10 chances and only take 2. But the Blues, they took their chances when on offer and they accumulated the points. So you give them some credit there. I still think their attack, though, look, I don't think if the game's a high-scoring game against the Crusaders, I don't think the Blues are going to win. I still think you look at their attack and it doesn't look instinctive. They still look confused, I think. And you see that with their pick and goes. They sort of pick and go, and it's slow. They take a second before they pick and go, rather than just complete instinct where they just pick and go and have that real fast ruck speed, real fast dynamic attack. So let me know your thoughts on the Blues attack down below, guys. Do you agree with my comments, or let me know your thoughts? The other thing I'd say about the Blues is, look, these big games are about the big players standing up. And I'll get to a few players down the line where I don't think that they did stand up in the qualifying finals. But big names like Beauden Barrett, look, guys, let me know your thoughts on him. He was phenomenal against the Chiefs. Particularly, there's a bit of talk around him being old and not quite having that X factor of an All Black player. But look, particularly his attack, like those chip kicks were beautifully placed. And look, he was that close from scoring a try, wasn't he? You know, he dived on the line and the ball unfortunately just sprayed out the side rather than being caught by him, and he scores under the post. But particularly Beauden Barrett's kicking, his game management, his leadership, outstanding. So I think that's going to really help the Blues into the semi-finals and the finals. And the other one I thought was Rieko Ioane. Look, there's been a lot of talk about him being unutilised in this Blues side, but I still think, look, the Blues didn't really get him into the space to use Rieko's raw speed the way I probably would have liked, but particularly Rieko's defence was outstanding. The physicality that Rieko brings on defence, His ball carries up the middle were very powerful and dynamic. Look, he had another really good game, and certainly you can see when the leaders of these sides step up, it really helps these Super Rugby sides. I think if we look at the Crusaders, they were superb against the Queensland Reds. From me, a big factor I think there's their defence. Like they muscled up so well. Their line speed that they put on the Reds really troubled the Reds, and particularly the way they spanned out their cover defence, very little gaps and very little space for the Queensland Reds to attack the Crusaders. So yeah, that was particularly impressive by the Crusaders. And look, the Crusaders attack, look, I don't think it was anything flashy. As I've said before, I don't think they have the game changers like some of these other Super Rugby sides, but the big thing I would say about the Crusaders against the Queensland Reds, when they had their chances, they took them on attack. And that's like the Crusaders of old. So they're going to take their chances when on offer and score points, and that makes them very, very dangerous on attack. Prediction for this one, look, it's going to be an absolute nail-biter, brutal contest. I can see the defence being a real big factor in this game. I can't see the game being a high-scoring type game. I think it'll be a real belter, real physicality and power type game. I just think if you look at both sides, though, what I would say, I don't think that the Crusaders played a particularly good Queensland Reds side. I think the Queensland Reds their attack struggled to really get going. I don't think the Queensland Reds really adapted to the conditions in Christchurch very well at all. And yeah, you just look at that blue side, the spirited win they had against the Chiefs was just phenomenal. Like they are going to absolutely come for the Crusaders and the physicality, the defence that they'll bring when on attack. The Blues are going to really take their chances when on offer. So really tough game to call, but I actually think I'm going to back the Blues to win this by 3 points. So close game, but let me know your thoughts on that prediction down below, guys. Guys, if you're enjoying the content, please support the channel. Hit the subscribe button, like the video, chuck some banter down below, and feel free to share the video with mates. Semi-final number 2, the Chiefs versus the Brumbies in Hamilton. Ooh, on Saturday night, June the 14th. Yeah, look, firstly, I'll look at the Brumbies, and wow, I mean, I didn't think that they would beat the Hurricanes, but yeah, let me know your thoughts down below on that game. The thing I would say about that, I think the Brumbies' defence was absolutely outstanding, like tactical. They span out so well. Their power and physicality they brought on defence was class. And I think the other thing as well on the defence and attack, the Brumbies, they're just so mentally tough. Like you see it time and again in the Super Rugby competition, the round robins. Like you think that the Brumbies are just done and dusted. They've got no chance of winning it and coming back, and they just hang in there, and they can easily score 2-3 tries in the last 15 minutes with their attack, their phase play. They're just so clinical and accurate, and they just keep coming and coming and coming. So, I think the Brumbies on attack, as I said before, I think they're kind of like the Crusaders. Look, they're not flashy. I don't think they have the game changers like some of the other Super Rugby sides, but look, they are so clinical, so accurate, particularly what was so impressive against the Hurricanes, the way they can build phases, build pressure, and particularly 2 tries in the second half against the Hurricanes. That phase play, those pick and goes from the Brumbies forwards. And to be honest, I don't know, it'd be pretty hard to stop that. You've seen that in other games, just continuous pick and goes. And eventually, someone's going to have too much power to just drive in low, drive over the line. Pretty impressive by the Brumbies. And certainly, you look at some of their big name players. The first one that comes to mind, Rob Valetini. Like, he was absolutely phenomenal, I thought, against the Hurricanes. That inside pass to Tom Wright, try in the corner, absolutely great. And the physicality he brought, his work around the breakdown, he really stepped up. The other one I thought was good was Noah Lolosio. I just particularly like his game management. I think he connects really well with the forwards and the backs, and particularly that Brumbies attack just looks really clinical, accurate, and dangerous. They're just so composed, they know what they're doing, and they just build those phases and really test that defence. I think, you look at the Hurricanes and, that loss would have really hurt. Particularly, let me know your thoughts on this down below. You look at some of the big name players for the Hurricanes, and the first one that comes to mind was Duplessis Kirifi. I'm sure he'll be pretty gutted and pretty disappointed with his performance and the Hurricanes' loss. But look, he's had an absolute blinder of a season, and I thought that game, he would be like a man possessed. I thought he would be brutally physical with his ball carries, brutal on defence, an absolute weapon at the breakdown. Let me know your thoughts again down below about him, but I just felt he went missing a little bit in that game, and particularly that break he made, dropped ball. Big moments. You need your big name players to really step up and be accurate. So, tough. I do think the other big name player though, Ruben Love, look, he's still quite young for the Hurricanes, but on a big game like that, look, he was absolutely phenomenal. And I think he's really going to put himself forward for the All Blacks this year for selection. So we'll find out in a couple of weeks there anyway, guys. I think you look at the Chiefs. Oof. Their defence against the Blues, it was good. I thought they brought that power and physicality on defence well against the Blues. And even looked at that last play of the game, that try, it was still very hard for the Blues to crack that Chiefs defence. I thought the Chiefs midfield did particularly well on defence. They were up against a pretty good Blues midfield. AJ Lamb and Rieko Ioane. Rieko Ioane's no slouch, and they certainly covered well. I thought that Chiefs midfield made good decisions. The Chiefs attack, let me know your thoughts down below about what happened with that. I said last week I thought the Chiefs' attack would absolutely blitz the Blues' defence. But, a couple of things from me, quite simply. The ruck speed was way too slow for the Chiefs. So I don't know what caused that, but slow ruck speed and you don't have that speed and intensity to really test the opposition. That was the number one thing for me there. Secondly, their game plan was to take on the Blues up front, up the middle. And look, the Chiefs' attack did that quite well. But I think where they went wrong was that combination of power up the middle and then shifting it to Damian McKenzie and then making decisions from there. I don't think Damian McKenzie's game management in the game was particularly great, which I was surprised about because other games in Super Rugby, he's been absolutely phenomenal with his game management. But it just seemed to get to Damian or the first receiver and go to the midfield or there just didn't seem to be the decision-making, the shifting into space, whether there wasn't really the dynamic crossfield kicking into space or chip kicking or... I was surprised. It just seemed very confused and not the Chiefs' attack of previous weeks. So, and the only other thing I thought maybe that went wrong, guys, was it stage fright? I don't know. It just felt like the pressure came on and, the Chiefs' attack just didn't seem to click as well as... Look, as I've said, there was at least 3 chances that the Chiefs had that they dropped the ball, or you'd think they would be accurate and execute in a big game like that, and they just didn't. So, tough pill for the Chiefs to swallow, that's for sure. Look, looking at this game, let me know your thoughts on my comment here, but I suppose I'm a traditionalist. I like finals to be knockout rugby, so I'd like the Chiefs in that regard to just be done for the season now. They've lost in a qualifying final that's their season done, but they got top of the table so that they get another week. I think you look at this game against the Brumbies, look, the Chiefs at home, and look, Clayton McMillan is a stern coach. I'm sure he will give them an absolute bollocking this week. And I just think that Chiefs attack is going to come out and be much, much more clinical this coming game. The other thing I'd say to that, look, they only just lost to the Blues. They were still there and thereabouts. They're a good side, the Chiefs, and especially at home. I think this game will be close. The Brumbies will really take it to them, but I just think that Chiefs attack is going to click this week. It'll be better. And so this game, I'm predicting the Chiefs to win by 5 points. So let me know your thoughts down below. So in summary of both the semi-finals, we have the Crusaders versus the Blues down in Christchurch. An absolute ripper of a game coming up. I have that one predicted, the Blues to win that by 3 points. And then the second semi-final, we have the Chiefs versus the Brumbies in Hamilton. That will be another absolute belter. And I have the Chiefs to win that by 5 points. So again, chuck some banter down below about my predictions, guys. And look, let me know your thoughts on these matches. There's unbelievable upset by the Blues. I'm still absolutely gobsmacked on that. And let me know your thoughts on my match predictions. Any other factors you think that will be critical in the semi-finals, chuck the banter down below, guys. And if you've enjoyed this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and chuck some more banter down, guys. Can't wait. Semi-finals. Cheers.